Let's get the latest from the Sunday Times Europe editor, Peter Conradi, who, appropriately enough, is in Paris. Peter, the consensus where you are among commentators, politicals, for what it's worth, is that the National Rally emerges as the largest party again on Sunday, as it did on round one, but without an overall majority. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I mean, the French elections, because of the political system, because of the two rounds, they're very, very difficult to call because you get a lot of tactical voting and you get all this kind of maneuvering between the first and the second rounds with parties kind of stepping back in order to help another one and so on. So, but I mean, the most likely result, I think, according to the polls, is that the National Rally will, I mean, let's say, will certainly be the largest party, but it will probably fall short, and quite a way short, I think, of the 289 seats that it and its allies would need to get a majority in the lower house of parliament, and thus oblige Macron to name Jourdan Bardella, this 28-year-old protege of Marine Le Pen, as you very rightly described him, to become the next prime minister.
Well, I can probably hear a collective sigh of relief from the French political establishment if the National Rally doesn't win an overall majority. I get that. But if that doesn't happen, what does? French politics suddenly become very complicated, do they not?
Yeah, I mean, it takes us completely, or it would take us completely into uncharted territory, because if the National Rally does get its majority, we have a period of what's called cohabitation. It's happened 3 times before, which is when you have a president of one party and the prime minister of another party. What we would end up with if they do fall short, and they fall quite a way short, is that Macron, as president, would have to somehow put together a government out of various elements that would have the support of a majority of members of the lower house of parliament. Now, I mean, one possibility is that we would have a technocratic government of the sort that they tend to have in the past in Italy when they can't agree among themselves, which will be composed of non-political figures, which would then try to get the support of members of parliament, which will be, completely untested. That's just not something that France has had, certainly not since the dawn of the current republic, the Fifth Republic, set up in 1958. Alternatively, if Macron's own party doesn't do quite as badly as people say, or it's still going to lose a lot of seats, but maybe not quite as many as people think it's going to do, Macron might then perhaps try to put together a kind of a weird coalition, sort of peeling off some from the center left, peeling off some from the center right, try to sort of cobble something together which would have the support of a majority of members of parliament. But again, I'm not quite sure how good the chances are of doing that are, which would then leave us with a sort of then what? And I don't know the answer to that then what.
Now, Peter, you're as puzzled as I am as to what happens with the hung parliament, but we'll leave it there for the moment. Thanks for joining us, Peter Conradi in Paris. Let's now turn to Agnès Poirier, a French political commentator, UK editor of the French weekly L'Express, and she's also in Paris this week. Agnès, welcome to the program. Let me come in with this. I see that this young National Rally premier in waiting we were talking about there, Jourdan Bardella, he's still saying he'll only take the job of Prime Minister if his party wins an overall majority. Now, that sounds wise to me, but will he stick to that? Or will the temptation for power at last for the National Rally? Would they even think of forming a minority government?
Well, it depends on the number of seats, really. Because if they are just a few seats away from an absolute majority, which should be 289 seats, if they've got 4 seats missing, then it's quite easy to find them perhaps in other hard right or right wing allied within Les Républicains, for instance. Now, if they are far away, if there are, I don't know, more than a dozen seats missing, then they might choose to blame President Macron, as you know, it's become a national sport. Everything,
Everyone else does. Why shouldn't they?
Exactly. If you wake up in the morning with toothache, President Macron is obviously responsible. So it would be quite easy, because they've seen the last 2 years there's been a minority government, although we did elect President Macron with a comfortable majority, at least at the presidential election. We didn't give him a majority, absolute majority, and it's been hell for his governments to try and pass reforms and laws on which he was elected. And
let me ask you a little bit.
Yes.
Let me ask you a bit more about Mr. Bardella. He's of course entirely untried. He's only 28. But given his party's anti-immigrant attitudes, his backstory is interesting. He's from a family of Italian and Algerian immigrants.
Well, yes, his well, his, you know, there's the storytelling, there's the spin that Marine Le Pen's party is giving, you know, on his background. It's not as perfect as it sounds. So yes, he was brought up on a estate in the north of Paris.
Well, we'd call a council. Well, we'd call a council estate.
Exactly, but certainly a rather quiet one. And his mother, it is true, comes from a family of Italian immigrants, and rather modest. And he was brought up by his mother. His father, though, was an entrepreneur and quite comfortably off, and so he belongs to the small bourgeoisie, if you like, and he was educated in a private school, private as in Catholic school, and didn't go to the state school. So it's
not private as in Eton.
No, not private as in Eton, private as in you know, private France, that is to say, rather
Catholic.
affordable, but still, and Catholic in that instance. And also, he never worked in his life. He didn't go to university. And an interesting fact that is not very well known is he belongs to the Le Pen clan. His partner was until very recently, if not still the case, the niece of Marine Le Pen. This is how they do it in Le Pen clan.
All right. Let me come back to the politics of it, away from the personality. Now, it's a French tradition that the more mainstream parties band together in the second round of elections to defeat Le Pen's party. But I wonder if this is clear cut this time, that in many places, the left-wing New Popular Front, which is a strong, what we would call Corbynista element and a communist element, that'll be the alternative to the National Rally. So the alternative to the National Rally sometimes itself will not be that mainstream. That could be the National Rally's opportunity.
Well, it's not as clear-cut because there's a third element, which is the centrist. You know, don't completely forget about them. Macron is not dead yet.
No, but most seats will be a two-way choice.
Well,
I mean, there was talk after round one that up to 300 seats could be more than a two-way choice, but that hasn't worked out. The vast majority of seats will be two-way choice.
They made dealings, absolutely, between the left alliance, and it has a strong element, as you're saying, which comes from the hard left, led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon. But look, a lot of people would say, there's no way I'm going to choose, and I'd rather abstain if I have to face a hard left candidate or a Le Pen candidate. But within that left alliance, you have the Socialists, for instance, and you have the Greens, and they are Republican candidates. So a lot of people from the right, from the center, from the left, if they have the choice, socialist or a green, will vote for a socialist and a green, because you know, they are not, the hard left is not represented in every constituency.
No,
If you see what I mean, it's only a component.
Right. Okay, let me. I got one more. I need.
Clear cut.
No, I know, which is what makes prediction so difficult. But it does sound like whatever happens, in some ways, France is. It's almost like it's heading back to the modus operandi of the pre-1958 Fourth Republic, in which the president's on the sidelines and the National Assembly is where the politics takes place, and it's constantly chopping and changing. And that in that context, President Macron, he's got 3 years to run, and he's pretty much a lame duck.
Well, as you're saying, the Fourth Republic was a parliamentary republic, and there was no president. There was a president of the council, and such recomposition, if you like, of the French political landscape could not function in the Fifth Republic, that is to say, a presidential system. So, and I really don't see President Macron cohabiting or cohabitation, as we call it in French, with people who he shares nothing with. Because in the 1980s, 1990s, when we had François Mitterrand, the socialist president, with Jacques Chirac, for instance, the Gaullist prime minister, they shared essential Republican values. This wouldn't be the case here.
No, but if the National Rally does emerge as the largest party, and we still can't rule that, not the largest with an overall majority, we still can't rule that out. If it does get an overall majority, President Macron has no choice but to ask Mr. Bardella to form a government, doesn't he?
It does and it doesn't, in the sense that, first of all, Bardella and Le Pen party can say, well, sorry, we don't have an absolute majority, as we mentioned before.
No, but if he does have an absolute majority, he has to call...
Well, then yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Or he could resign. Or
he could resign, indeed.
Of course. He said he wouldn't resign, but he had said he wouldn't dissolve.
We're running out of time here, but who becomes president? Is it the president of the Senate becomes the president if he resigns?
Yes, that's true.
Very well, which certainly on the UK side of the channel, no one's heard of. Anyway, lots of uncertainty. We'll keep an eye on what's happening Sunday night, and in many ways it could be more interesting than our own election today. But I think it is more interesting. Agnes Poirier, thanks for joining us.